Hey guys, today I'm going to be showing you how to build a static HTML website. We're not going to cover the dynamic part of website building just yet because I believe that you need to have a good understanding of static websites before you start moving into dynamic things such as PHP, MySQL, JavaScript, things like that to make your page more interactive. I believe you need to have a solid foundation in HTML and CSS before you can move on to those subjects. So these tutorials that I'm going to be putting out, about 5 of them, are going to go through how to build just a simple static website. And static means that the information on the page doesn't change. It's not changed by the user, it doesn't interact with the user, it's just there. This choice may be good for small business owners who maybe want to put up just a simple website for their small business with a couple pages just describing who they are, how to get in contact with them, and what they do, instead of having to go spend hundreds of dollars to hire somebody else to build them a nice dynamic page. This could be great for people learning how to do websites and move forward into the dynamic part of it. Let me get rid of this here. Okay. And it's also good for people just wanting to play around and learn HTML, even if you're not going to build websites and you just want to kind of get an idea of what HTML looks like and how websites are created. This will be a great video for you. There's no advanced topics in this really, just HTML and CSS. Alright, so we're going to be using Dreamweaver Adobe CS 5.5. We are not going to be doing design view, we will be doing code view so that you can see everything as we do it. First off, we need to create a new site, so we're going to go here to Site, New Site. We're going to name the site Static Website. Okay, and then as you can see here, our local site folder will be in WAMP www, and then we want to create a new folder. We don't want to, let me see if we can't get that to open up normal. Nope. There we go. We want this to have a new folder in there for us called Static Website. Okay. I do advise not putting spaces, so do an underscore. It's just easier to type in the browser at the end. So we'll call it Static Website. We'll open, we'll select it. So that's going to be our local site folder, which means that's where our files go when we save them. It is also inside of a server. You do not have to put these inside of a server because we are not doing any server-side coding. I could set up a server right now if I wanted to, but as I said before, it's a static website. It's just HTML and CSS. So if you wanted to, you could save this file, or these multiple files, to your desktop or your documents, wherever you want to save them to. Click Save. And we now have our new website created. Make sure you're in local view so that you can see all the files in there. Alright, we're going to come here and do a create new HTML page. Now we're going to be working in the XHTML 1.0 transitional. HTML5 is the new standard coming out. It's still not fully supported 100% in all browsers for all features, but it is supported pretty well. For example, I'll show you guys here an HTML5 site that I'm working on. Hold on just a second. Okay. Now I do like HTML5 over HTML 4.0 or the XHTML. As you can see here, this is an HTML5 website. If we view the source real quick, you'll see that our doc type is different. Right here, we have our doc type just /HTML instead of this right here, doc type HTML public, and then it lists on what exactly it was, where it exactly came from. Alright, we're not going to worry about any of that. I don't want to confuse you guys with HTML5 or HTML4 or XHTML transitional. We're just going to stick with the default XHTML. We're going to stick with divs, things like that. Stuff that's easier for you to understand and comprehend. Okay, so as you see here, we have our declaration up here for our doc type that tells the browser what kind of file this is, what kind of language to encode it or to read it as, and display it properly. So this doc type right here declares that it's XHTML 1.0 transitional in English. This is the web address to the World Wide Web Consortium, and that is all the rules that it has to follow, pretty much. Here is the web address again, and then this is telling us right here that the page contains text HTML with the UTF-8 character encoding. So first off, we need to look at some of these tags here, because you may be wondering what an HTML tag is, or a head tag, or a meta title, body, things like that. Basically, the HTML tag just describes what the information is on the page. So annoying. Okay. The HTML tag is what all your stuff goes in between, all your HTML code, all your HTML tags, and it tells the browser that this is an HTML page. Now, the head tag is where your meta content will go, which will be keywords, different things like that, your style sheets, your title for the document. All that goes in the head. It doesn't show up in the body of the actual website. This is all just behind the scenes information. The meta tags are great for search engine optimization, so you need to look into those a little more. We'll cover a few of them here, but we're not going to go into extreme detail with them. Alright, the title of the page is what you see up here. These little tabs, and on the internet you'll see we have tabs, and those are the titles as well. So what you see here, the Mozilla Firefox start page. If you open up Facebook, you can see Facebook up here. Those are called titles. And so we will set our title here to static website. Okay. Now, we're going to save this file for the first time. Click File, Save As, or Save. It doesn't matter the first time. You can click Save As or Save. It will do the same exact thing. We'll click Save As. You could also do Control S. Now we need to name this page Index. Okay. Basically what Index does is it tells the browser when you first navigate to the web URL that the index is the first page it goes to every time. Index HTML takes precedence over index.php unless you specify otherwise, like htaccess or something along those lines. So you need to name your first file Index because that's going to be the main page people go to. So you don't have to type in the HTML because it automatically knows that it needs to be .html because that's the file type that we chose when we first chose to create it. So don't worry about it. We're saving it in our static website. So click Save. And you'll see over here in our files that index.html now shows up properly. Now we're going to hit the F12 key, and I'll show you why here. If you right click, Preview in Browser, Firefox is F12, then you have Internet Explorer. I use Firefox as my main browser. You could also use Internet Explorer, Google Chrome, Safari, whichever choice you would like. But I'm going to hit F12 to view this file inside of Firefox. Now you'll see that there's nothing on the page. Remember I told you that the title would be up here, so that's where our title is. The index.html is the page that it goes to. Okay, we'll leave this browser window open because we will be coming back to it quite regularly. And we're going to set up some information here real quick. Alright, so to start off with our static page, the main part of the pages need to be laid out however you want to do the design of the site. Now there's multiple ways to do this. Inside our body tag is where all our text will be going with our markup, which are the tags, and I'll go over some of the tags. But we need to either have, we need to have a design kind of in mind while we do this. Do you want a liquid layout? Do you want a fixed width layout? I personally like using grid systems to lay out my sites, but you don't have to. You could use whatever you like. But generally most static websites, especially beginner ones, start off with just a header at the top, some sort of navigation, horizontal navigation bar. Then you generally just have the body content and a footer. Some of them do have a sidebar, some of them don't. For the purposes of this, we're not going to have a sidebar just for the fact that it's more coding than we really need to be doing, and the concepts you learn with this will be easy to apply to add a sidebar later on if you so choose. So in our body section, we're going to lay out a div tag, a div section for our entire container, or our entire body. You may be asking, well, why can't we do that with the body? I thought that's what the body does, is encompass all the code. Well, it does, but when we're laying this out in CSS, it's much better to have a container already set up and pre-made for us. So what we're going to do is type in div, as you can see there. We're going to give it the ID of container. And then we are going to close the div tag. To close the tag, all you do is simply hit the backslash and it will automatically fill it in for you. So now we have our container tag here. Alright, and periodically I do recommend Control S to save your files just in case you do have a crash. I was having CS5 Dreamweaver here crash on me yesterday night as I was uploading the website to somebody and trying to edit the paths on some of the pages, and it kept crashing. But luckily I saved my work continuously so I didn't lose any information. So I do recommend that you autosave or Control S as much as possible. Alright, so now we have our div ID container, and we'll break this down here in just a minute, but let's just lay out the rest of the site first, kind of get a skeleton key of it as you wish. Alright, so we have our container. Now we have our next div, which is going to be our header or our logo section. I like to call it our header. Sorry, we'll do the ID there. Header. Alright. Our next div is going to be our navigation, so we'll call it nav. Alright. Our next div will be our footer, or I'm sorry, our content. So we have an ID for content, or you can call it body, whatever you want to call it. I think content will keep it a little bit separate from the actual body tag, which we'll cover all these tags here in just a minute. I know I kind of touched on them briefly in the beginning, but we'll go over them again once we have the skeleton laid out here. So div ID, and then we're going to have our footer. Oops. Okay. Now I'll explain why I laid everything out like this. Alright, so we already covered what the head tag was about. We covered what the HTML tag was about. Body tag, that's where all your content goes. That's what actually shows up on the browser. That's where you put all the text, all the pictures, all the links, all the videos, everything to actually show up on your web page. Now a div is basically an invisible box. Think of it as an invisible box around your content. So you can have as many divs as you would like. So as you see here, we have our div ID container, which is basically just an invisible box around our entire website, our entire web page. Sorry about that. I had a phone call. So, alright, I kind of forgot where I left off here. We'll just start off with div ID nav. Well, let's start off from here. Container wraps the whole body, the whole website that you actually physically see. Header, that's where your logo and stuff's going to go. It could be picture, it could be text, it could be whatever you want. As I said before, divs are an invisible box that will expand and contract as you fill them with information. Alright, our div ID nav, that is our navigation area. That's going to be our navigation box. Our div ID content, that's where the chunk of our website's going to be, where our content, our information, videos, things like that, that's where all that's going to be. Our footer, copyright notices, things like that, that's where all that's going to go. Alright, so this is the skeleton, bare bones basics of how to lay out a static HTML website. Let me get back here to our static website there. Alright, so this is how you will set up your website here. Now we can save this into a little folder called templates. We don't have to do that. Before actually putting more information in, what you can do is save as, and if you know you're going to have 4 pages on this website, an About Us page, you already have your home page, a contact page, and maybe a services page. You can create these pages right here without having to go up and do File New. So all we do is Control-Shift-S, or the same exact thing as Save As, and we'll just rename it. So we'll rename this as our About Us. So it'll just be About. Control-Shift-S. Alright. We're going to name this one Contact. Control-Shift-S. We're going to name this one Services. Now we're going to make a hypothetical site, as I said before. This is just going to be a static HTML website, and this site is going to be for, let's pick a service industry. How about lawn and garden? Let's do a lawn and garden website. Just a simple one. You know, maybe you're just starting your own lawn and garden in your area. You don't have a lot of money. You don't have a lot of time. You definitely don't have the money to hire, a professional to come in and build a website for you. So you just want to pump out something quick and easy because you know a website is vital to a business. So you just want a couple pages just to kind of give people something to look at, some way to contact you, and a way to put your information out there. So we'll do a lawn and garden website here, and something simple, something quick. And this is our skeleton of the page. This is going to end the first video here. We kind of talked about how to set up the pages, showed you what difference between HTML5 and HTML 4.01 and XHTML transitional is. Talked a little bit about the different tags, why we lay the site out the way we do. Alright, we talked about what all this was up here, and the head tags, things like that. In the next video, we're going to sit and talk about how to actually start putting information into your website. We're going to start talking about the different tags required for that. We're also going to start talking about CSS, which is the standard for styling any HTML page nowadays. Back in the day, HTML was styled directly from the HTML file itself. Now with CSS, our cascading style sheets, we can actually style our web pages and keep our HTML pages clean and just strictly HTML the way they're supposed to be by using an external cascading style sheet or CSS file that we link up here in our head section, as you can see here. We would just put a link to that page, which we'll do in the next video, and we'll show you how to actually start laying out the content of your website and displaying it properly. So stay tuned for that video. We'll be getting it up here soon in the next few minutes, and you'll be able to move on with building your static HTML site. And I hope this was easy to follow. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to leave comments down below. Alright, thanks guys.